Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our CLC Connection for Management Information Systems. We are excited to present this conversation to you about preparing for a career in MIS, studying for MIS, and what does the role look like? What do the career fields look like once you get into the field? We are joined by our special guest today, who I will introduce momentarily. But before we get started, this is an opportunity for you to ask as many questions as you would like to engage with our special guest today. So please feel free to, if you're joining us virtually, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat. We encourage commentary as well, and we will get to your questions during the session. If you are with us in person, please speak loudly to ask your question, and we will answer it during the session as well. Additionally, this is being recorded and will be made available to you at a later time to share with your peers or rewatch. But other than that, without further ado, I introduce to you Mr. Mark Cox, an ATA alumni, UHD alumni, current grad student in MIS.
Grad student in applied biomedical informatics.
Yes. And for someone who has no background in STEM, Mark will be happy to explain all of that once during our conversation. And now Mark is now employed with MD Anderson, working with like the diagnostic imaging department and the software that they use in those departments. Yes, you are doing the things, Mark. I know I was discussing with my peers here in person, but I don't know if everyone online heard. Today was actually my very first day of this job. So hopefully I can answer some of your questions that you might have. Prior to this position, I also had an internship at MD Anderson, so I do have some experience, I guess, under my belts. Oh, you're well-rounded, don't worry. You're gonna be great. But before we get started, Mark, I do have two icebreaker questions for you. You ready? Yeah. What is your favorite word? See, I should have had a response because I actually saw this question. But, I don't know, maybe right now it's probably food. Right. Favorite cuisine? I like Mexican food a lot. Okay. Yeah, it's a good cuisine to enjoy here in Houston. Any dish, particular dish? I like fajitas a lot. Yes. Do you have a favorite fajita recommendation? I like the fajitas from El Tiempo, and I like the chicken fajitas. They have a special topping called like latana, and it has serrano peppers. It has like cheese, garlic. It's really good. Okay. Add that to your list for all the foodies. I'm going to go get tacos later on, and I will be thinking about if they have fajitas on the menu. So thank you for that quick plug. My next question is, if you could be any insect, what insect would you be and why? Any insects? Probably an insect that has wings. I feel like flying would be kind of cool. Okay. I don't know, maybe butterflies, you know, they're beautiful. They're doing their own thing, you know. They start out as a caterpillar and then they go into their chrysalis and they come out and they're completely new. Do you have any like colors you would like to be a butterfly? I like blue, maybe a blue butterfly. Okay. I think blue morpho is one kind of butterfly. Blue morpho? Yeah, I think that's what it's called, and it's like black and blue. Okay. Okay. I like it. I would like to see what that looks like. All righty. Well, thank you for the icebreakers, the food, and the bug. Our first question, as you shared a little bit before we started the conversation, if you can give us some background on your educational journey and how you went from internship to full-time position with MD Anderson. Yeah, of course. So as Ashley mentioned, I graduated from UHD, but I was a transfer student. When I first graduated from high school, I wanted to be a doctor. So I was going to school for like pre-med. And after my first 1 or 2 semesters, I noticed that my grades weren't where they needed to be. Career path wasn't really working out so much. So I took some time off from school and kind of reevaluated what I wanted to do. And then I came across UHD because I'm from Houston and I liked computers a lot, but I didn't necessarily want to be a programmer. And so that's why MIS caught my eye,
because to me, MIS is like the intersection between, the business worlds and the computer worlds. And so you have skills kind of from both areas. So I pursued MIS, and then I recently graduated. And then I was able to, I had some desire to work in the medical fields. I wanted to be a doctor at first, and I was like, okay, maybe I can kind of pivot to like a healthcare IT kind of role. So during my last couple of semesters at UHD, I was looking for internship opportunities in hospitals in the Houston area. And I applied to a lot, and probably at least like 15. And I only heard back from like 2. And one of them was at MD Anderson, and I ended up getting the internship role. It was completely remote, and it was started over the summer, I believe May of 21 last year. And in my internship, I spent time with the IT project management team, who were responsible for like implementing new technologies and stuff at the hospital. And then I also spent time with the IT training team, and they're the ones responsible for making the material to train like doctors on how to use the software. So it was really neat. A lot of new experiences, I guess, things that I didn't necessarily know existed. I didn't know that IT training existed as, an entire area of, like as a career path. But, it was really neat and insightful experience. So once I graduated, I was continuing to, I had this internship, and I was looking for full-time opportunities in application analysis, which is what I am now. And there's a lot of different types of things you can do, I guess, as an application analyst. Lots of different types of software, but in my current role, I work specifically with the diagnostic imaging departments, and they have software. So I help create accounts. I help people who have issues with access to certain imaging systems. I kind of learn more about some of the processes they use for like when they onboard new doctors and they get added to the system. And then I'm also partly responsible for making some like training material.
Okay.
So one thing that I forgot to mention is that prior to my internship and while I was still at UHD, I also worked on campus in a computer lab, and I worked in the business building. So in that role or capacity, I was responsible for general like computer lab help, but also IT help in the College of Business if they had issues with projectors in the classroom or things like that. And in that role, we worked with a ticketing system, like a help desk queue. And so we would have like assignments, and we would go in and we would, we would help people with their problems and document the progress in this system. And I think a lot of what I learned from that, is now directly applicable to what I do in my new role. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, you've been very busy since the last time we saw you in ATA. I do want to backtrack on, you spoke about getting an internship before you graduated. Can you talk to us about that process? What were some of the best practices you did? Any tips and advice you have?
So when I was applying to internships, it was about, I guess, a year or so into COVID. And so I knew that the jobs were kind of iffy, I guess, but I was open and willing to, virtual experiences. I know that for some people, they really want an in-person components. I think to each their own. I was willing to, I guess, be flexible and pursue options that might have been not as traditional. My internship at MD Anderson was completely virtual, and it was the first time that they had really offered this kind of program. I was working in a department called Shared Services, and there were 4 or 5 other internships also available to students in the IT departments with slightly different, I guess, responsibilities. And one thing I would suggest is, apply to as many, internships or positions they have available.
Mhm.
I applied to all 5 of the internships at MD Anderson, and only one of them reached out to me. I think that I knew that I wanted to do something with healthcare IT, and I knew there were opportunities out there, but I was willing to kind of see the direction that my internship took me. I was, didn't have it stuck in my head that this is exactly what I wanted to do. I knew that just kind of getting in the door, I guess, was the first step. And I think that, in applying to internships, don't be discouraged if you don't hear back. Don't be discouraged if you don't get the first one you apply to. But one thing that I did was, excuse me, the few positions that I did have the opportunity to interview for, I took them as a learning experience, even if I didn't get the internship, or I didn't advance to the later rounds of interviews. I'm not sure how appropriate this would be, but I reached out to it's not bad, but I reached out to the hiring managers and the people who I interviewed with, and I said, okay, I know that I wasn't selected for this position, but is there some reason why? Like, is there some way that I could, something that I could do to change, or,
No, that's very
improve?
appropriate. That's good.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes, they wouldn't respond, but other times, they would be willing to let you know and say, oh, either you were a close applicant, but this person had this skill set, or, oh, we were looking for someone who had more experience with this. One thing that they preach a lot, I think, in preparing for interviews is it doesn't really matter what hard skills you have. If you're adept with this one software, or you're familiar with this one thing, they're more concerned with the soft skills and how you communicate, the ways that, not only that, but do you have favorite like methods or modes of communication? Some people, they prefer face-to-face. Other people, they prefer, meeting virtually. And then also, like, what kind of learner are you? Are you hands-on? The questions they ask in the interview, they have a lot to do with how you'll fit into their little unit, I guess. At least in my experience. And I could even tell in the interviews that I had for my full-time position, there were some teams that were very laid back, I guess, and more comfortable. Some of them were very strict, I guess you could say, or more formal. But, it's nice to kind of see, all these different options out there, and to experience these different, kinds of environments, I guess, in the interview process.
Absolutely, absolutely. I have several follow-up questions to the information that you just shared. Again, I think you asking, what could I have done better? What can I improve on? Or just following up with the hiring team, that is an excellent tool and skill to have, because you would like to know, if I didn't get selected for this position, what can I do, or what can I begin to think about going into these other positions? So that is appropriate, and you are good. In your interviews and the questions that they were asking, do you remember what they were looking for, so that audience members going into these fields can start to consider these things?
So yes, a lot of the questions that I asked, there were some similarities between the interviews. A lot of these interviews that I discussed are pertaining to the interviews I had at MD Anderson. I did apply to other hospitals, other companies. I'm not sure if they would be different, but I have a feeling that they'd probably be generally similar. But kinds of questions they would ask, talk about a time when you were faced with an obstacle at work. How did you overcome that obstacle? Talk about a time when, do you have any water?
I sure
Yes.
do. I was trying to point it to you, and I'd be like pointing it to you, but yes.
Excuse me. Much better. Yeah, so talk about a time when you faced an obstacle. How did you overcome that obstacle? They also ask questions about, talk about a time when you had maybe you had a difference of opinion with someone at work, or you couldn't, you were on a different page. How did you, resolve this issue? How are you able to come to an agreement? Another question that I thought was really good, that it kind of threw me through a loop when they asked it, was it was almost like a hypothetical. They said, say that someone in a position higher than you, comes up with a solution to some problem, and you have a different solution. Like, would you be willing to let this higher up person know, oh, I think we should do it this way? Are you, would you be willing to, kind of stick up for yourself, I guess? And at first I was like, no, I would yield to, higher up the authority, you want to be respectful. And they were like, okay, that's one way to answer, but, in hiring someone, they want someone who's confident in, their own answers, and, who's willing to stick up for, what they think is right.
Absolutely.
So that was another question. Another question they asked was, talk about an area in a previous role that you saw room for improvement. Like, they want to see if you're if you're innovative, if you're willing to, see a problem on your own merit and then address it without, someone else telling you to fix it. Those are some of the questions that they would ask.
Those are great questions. I was just talking to Alana earlier today about the scenario you just mentioned about having an idea to address the concern and bringing it to her superior. So that was just, I think that was timely.
An organization that encourages that could be super important to me, as Ashley said. So
that's amazing. That's awesome. That's awesome. And to the soft skills that you mentioned, I like that you mentioned that, because we go to school for the hard skills, the content, the knowledge and information. However, we have to get involved in certain things to learn those intangibles. So can you share with me some of the soft skills that you notice outside of communication?
So I do think that communication is probably one of the big ones, in that a lot of things are, secondary to communication. Other soft skills, maybe, they want to see that you're kind of quick on your feet, that you're kind of goes hand in hand with being innovative, or being a, thinking outside of the box, I guess. They want to see that, you have some drive or passion, that you're, another big one, I think, is being a self-starter. A lot of teams, they want to be able to kind of put you into the role, and then you learn and grow on your own. And then if you have questions or you need guidance, you reach out to, other members of your team. They understand that in an internship, the main goal is to, kind of provide you with some of the skills that you need, and then also you provide them with some benefit in the form of, doing work. But they want someone who's willing to ask questions and be inquisitive, and see, someone who, they don't have to be, pushing you along to kind of to do things. You have to show the, desire and the drive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. Awesome. Great skills to foster. Follow-up question. Well, next question, segueing to your new position. Now that you are an applicant, I'm still getting associate application systems analyst in diagnostics. Okay. Do you know what your a day in the office will look like for you now? I know this is your first day.
Okay. So for me, I was because I was an intern at MD Anderson and I became a full-time employee at MD Anderson. Onboarding process was a bit different. I did not have to go into the office today or anything. My position is remote, Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. But a typical day in the office, I will say that one thing that I thought was interesting about the way working in the real world works, everything revolves around, I guess, your calendar and your schedule, at least to me. You have meetings scheduled every day for different teams, I guess, different little groups. So, I'll wake up and, get on the computer, and then I'll see what I have on my schedule, like on my calendar, see who I'm meeting with. I don't have any emails yet, but once I start checking emails, check emails. A lot of it is, just collaborating with different groups throughout the day.
Okay.
And then they kind of, in those meetings, you address ongoing issues maybe, or things that are on the plate, things that are known. And then throughout the day, if there's downtime, I'm either monitoring my email or the ticketing queue,
Okay.
which is where any new issues that come up will be sent.
Awesome.
So
Awesome. Are there special projects, or like each team has its own special project that they're working towards? Or
yeah, so working at a hospital, you have multiple types of scans, I guess. You have like MRI, CT, things like that. And then each one of these types of imaging has its own software associated with it. So individuals have access to, one system or the other. So I'm actually working on a new project that MD Anderson only recently started working on about 6 months ago.
Okay.
And it's called XNAT, XNAT. And right now, you go to a hospital and they take pictures of you and they use it to diagnose and to assess you, and they use it to treat one patient. And with this new software, they're taking all of the patient images and putting them into one database pretty much, so that now they can do research across the entire data set, and they can do, research on like larger groups. So instead of just treating one person with this information, now they can use this information and treat many people.
Oh, wow.
So that's specifically the role that I was brought into.
Okay.
I've not had too much exposure to that yet, but yeah, it's definitely exciting to be working on something big.
That's cool. So like, will it take like pull trends and patterns?
Yeah, yeah. And again, like being an MIS major, my role is more of like thinking of the questions to ask, like, what are the needs of this department? What kind of, what will the needs of the doctor be? What kind of questions will they be asking of the system? And then I, as the MIS major or the analyst, will go to the developer programmer with someone else and say, okay, can you build a system that does this and this and this? So
like you're the thought behind the algorithm.
Yeah, it's kind of like the the in between like the business side and then the development side.
Awesome.
So
okay, awesome. That I look forward to hearing what comes of the XNAT project, because that's pretty dope. It's pretty dope.
Right.
Y'all were talking about mice before we started, and I want to talk about that because that seemed kind of cool. But while you're talking about that, our online audience and our viewers with us in person, if y'all have any questions, please let us know. We will take this segment to answer them after Mark is done talking about these mice. So
the mice?
Yeah, the testing. We all talking about mice?
Yeah, so I work at MD Anderson for about 5 years. And so they have a DBMS section, which, does research, and they have mice. So we were talking about how when you first go in, it's kind of uncomfortable, especially for people who don't like mice.
Okay.
I for sure did not like them when I started. And they had me try and, catch one in the cage, and people were showing me they were doing it really fast, and they were doing it with prongs too. So it was yeah, they would grab the base of the tail like really fast. And I kept trying, like, this is not possible.
Yeah.
So after when I started working with them full time, it just becomes second nature.
Got you. It's giving me like a scene from Nutty Professor. It's giving me a scene from Nutty Professor. So Eric, you were the one that were playing with the mice.
Right.
I thought you were playing with the mice at your job. I was like, oh, that's cool. My bad. I'm so sorry. But that is dope, and I'm glad you got used to, catching the mouse. That's cool. Alina, I feel like we have a question from the audience. Do you
Yes.
asking that question, please?
Sure. So Kennedy asked, how long did it take for the hiring managers from MD Anderson to reach back out to you after your initial application?
It's a good question. So I think that I started applying to my internships in April or May of last year. Through their application system, you can kind of see what step in the process your application is. First step says application submitted, and then it goes to, I guess, recruiter review, like the HR department checks, and then it goes to the hiring manager, and they're the ones who you'll be working with directly. And then at that point, the hiring manager decides, okay, we want to interview, this candidate and this candidate and this candidate. And I think that from the time of me, hitting send on my application to HR reaching out and asking for an interview was probably about, I would say, no more than a month.
Wow.
That was for this internship, because I think the internship was set to begin May or so. And I think that I might have applied like March or April, around that time. There were 5 positions at MD Anderson that I applied to. I was interviewed for 2 of them, and the other 3 that I was not interviewed for, I didn't receive a notice of, I guess, like rejection until maybe like 2 months afterwards.
Okay.
So I think that that was pretty quick turnarounds. I know a lot of, I'm not sure how many applicants they had, but I know that when the applicant pool is large, or if you're applying to maybe a larger corporation, I wouldn't be surprised to be waiting for like 3-4 months.
Yeah.
It also, again, it depends on the timing of, these positions. Maybe if there's a listing in January and they're hiring in June, then it might be a bit longer to hear back.
Awesome. Great question, y'all. If y'all have some more,
I have
keep them
one.
coming. Alana in the
Yeah,
audience.
so Mark, just to confirm, now, did you start the internship after graduation?
So I graduated in August of 21. So I was still a student for 1 semester. I was taking classes over the summer, and I was doing the internship at the same time.
Got it, okay.
Gotcha.
Yes. I think that the qualification for the internship just said college bound or in college students.
Oh,
So
wow.
there was no, grade level requirements. I know there are some positions that require that. I think that what helped me secure this internship was my experience at UH downtown working in the computer lab, because there, I had a lot of the customer facing skills and interactions and experience that, they thought would be beneficial for the internship.
Absolutely. And to piggyback off of what you shared, Mark, about working on campus work is some of the best work experience you can probably get as a student, because there's so many departments at a university. So you have IT, you have financial aid, which works with finances. You have the ATA program, which is customer service. So you can begin to get that experience now, and it will be transferable to your next step. It may not be directly applicable, but there's some overlap there that you can, finesse and everything. And they work with your schedule. As a student, they understand that you're a student, and they pay better than outside of campus. I think the opening starting rate for student positions is, I think, $12, and it could be more, but I know it's at least $12 for sure. So you're interested in taking advantage of those opportunities. There's 2 career centers on campus: the Maryland Davies College of Business for all business majors, and then the main career center, which is right around the corner from here, for all the other colleges here at UHD. So go apply, y'all. Go apply.
Right. And another good thing about the opportunity to work on campus is that, or I think in my situation in specific, as an MIS major in the School of Business, I worked in the IT department in the business building. So I got to know my professors pretty well, because they're in the department, doubly so because of a lot of classes being virtual, you know, I wouldn't have normally been able to interact with or have these relationships with my professors. So I think I just kind of lucked out there, but yeah, definitely lots of perks to working on campus.
Absolutely. I love how you mentioned making those connections with your professors, even virtually. I think it takes away that barrier of, oh, this is my professor, I cannot approach them, because y'all are all in the same boat. And it kind of takes the load off a little bit as well. So thank you for sharing that piece. My next question for you is, describe 3 things that have been most important to you in choosing a career.
So I think the one big principle that kind of helps guide my career is that I wanted to be able to, you know, help people. I think a lot of people want that, but I think the main benefit to me is that I personally didn't really want to work in for a Fortune 500 company, because the main goal is to generate, I guess, profit for the stakeholders. It can also be, you know, to benefit the clients and the customers. But in healthcare, I feel as though like, okay, the work that I'm doing is having a positive impact on, you know, these patients' lives. You know, everyone who I'm working with kind of has that same mentality. We're all, you know, working together to benefit these other people. We're not, you know, at each other's throats trying to steal each other's promotions so that we can just make more money.
Yeah.
There's more to it than just money. And I think second thing that I was kind of looking for in a career, now that things have become virtual, I would have liked to have been in an office. I think it would have been neat, but now I can kind of see the benefits that working virtually has, the flexibility to work from home. It is my first day. Like, it's kind of, you know, it's very new, but I can see how working from home is, you know, something that I think will serve me well.
Okay.
Granted, that isn't the case for everyone.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you have a lot of people in your home, or maybe it's busy or loud, it's not the best work environments, but yeah, I think the, you know, flexibility in work is another thing that I look for.
Absolutely.
And then maybe the third thing that I looked for in a job or career, you know, I want to have some like stability, I guess, in my career. And I think that also kind of comes from like, okay, working in a healthcare setting, there's always going to be a need for healthcare workers. You know, it's not like, I mean, MD Anderson in particular, their goal is to make cancer history. Even if they accomplish that goal, they're not going to go away. I mean, now it's like, okay, we're just going to start curing people of cancer instead of treating them for it. So I guess job stability, you know, mission aligns with my personal values, and then flexibility in where I work.
Awesome. Okay, so now that you are working remote, can you describe to us your workspace? Have you curated your workspace?
My workspace, I love it so much, especially as like a tech person. Like, I wish I could show
Break it down to us. Give us a visual.
So I have the 2 monitors, you know, and then I have a work issued laptop, and I have a docking station that plugs into the laptop.
Okay.
So, you know, from the little docking station, my laptop plugs in, and I have my 2 screens, my mouse, my keyboard. I have a nice big desk. It's probably bigger than this. It's wider.
Oh, wow.
I like it because I can have both screens, and then I have plenty of space for like writing or papers or whatever I want. But the thing that I really like is I also have my personal computer, and I can take the cord that I plug into my laptop and then plug it into my personal computer at the end of the day. And then I can play video games on the same screen, the same, you know, keyboard and mouse and everything. But yeah, and then I have a webcam and I have a headset. I think that especially working virtually, it's having a nice webcam is helpful.
Yeah.
I've had quite a few people in the interviews be like, wow, your webcam is really clean.
Yeah.
And then having a headset too. I have a wireless headset, which I like. It's comfortable for me. But yeah, and then I have an Amazon, you know, little chair.
That's how I was getting to the chair. What's the chair like?
So it's the cheapest Amazon, like, it's called a gaming chair. the color is like black with red accents, so it is kind of gamery.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think if I'm feeling like spending some of my new money getting a new chair, I think the chair might be the first thing to go.
Absolutely.
okay,
Treat
okay.
yourself. Treat
Yeah.
yourself.
But yeah, I think you know, for me, having that space is very important.
Mhm.
You know, if I go to my girlfriend's apartment, I could technically check my laptop and work over there, but everything is just so different. Like I'm on one laptop, I don't have the extra screens. You know, I don't have like my space, you know.
Don't have that chair.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not you, it's the screen, it's the desk, it's the space. I get it. You spoke about games. How do you navigate work-life balance? You gave a little bit of it, you know, at 5:01. I'm turning on the video game.
Yeah. So the past like year or so, it was a big adjustment for me because excuse me. My internship was Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Mhm.
8 to 4, 8 to 4, and then 8 to 2. And then I would work at the computer lab on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And I would be taking 3 classes at the same time. So between all of that, I had to be like,
Yeah.
you know, on top of it. But, you know, between kind of having a calendar to kind of coordinate what I was doing when, and then having a planner for like my classwork and my assignments and knowing what is coming up, I was able to navigate. And at my help desk job, I was lucky. I was able to spend time doing homework
Mhm.
when I had downtime. And, you know, outside of, you know, I kind of like knew like, this is my schedule. This is the time that I have to do my homework. You know, this is kind of like how the balance needs to be. It's very easy to fall behind, especially navigating class and internship at the same time. You know, if you fall behind in your classes, it's very difficult to catch back up. So, you know, I spent a lot of time, I guess, on kind of organizing when I would be working on my assignments, knowing which assignments take me the longest amount of time. I think for me, it was also easy because I live by myself. So I don't have, you know, I don't have any kids. You know, I have a girlfriend, but we don't live together right now. And, you know, she was also very understanding. Like if I had homework or something going on, you know, she would understand if, you know, I need to take a night to, you know, focus on classwork. But yeah, finding a balance, I think it can be difficult, but then kind of once you find it and once you've navigated it, I think it gets easier. Like one of the biggest benefits, I think, to me having this new job is now instead of having 2 part-time jobs, I have 1 full-time job and it's 8 to 5 Monday to Friday. So my schedule. Oh,
yes.
It pay,
I like that. That's a good look. That's like, oh yeah, that is.
yeah, I remember I got the phone call from HR and they're like, oh yeah, we'd like to extend you an offer and like this is how much we're gonna offer you. And I was like, oh my God. and benefits.
Yes.
You know, it's kind of like light at the end of the tunnel, I guess.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm happy to kind of have, you know, some structure, I guess, now for work. I'm taking 2 graduate classes right now, but I took graduate classes last semester, so I kind of knew what I was in for.
Okay.
And the grad, can I ask that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you talk a little more about your graduate major
yeah, of
and
course.
where is that to?
Yeah, so right now I'm pursuing, it's called a certificate of applied biomedical informatics, which is pretty much healthcare IT. It's through UT Health, which is, you know, the used to be called UT Health Science Center. It's the school here in Houston. And the masters of the same program requires 13 courses to be completed. The certificate only requires 5 courses to be completed.
Okay.
And I started pursuing this because I knew my internship was closing. I knew that I was about to graduate and I was looking for full-time employment. And I was like, okay, I need something to kind of help me stand out in case I don't get a job right away. You know, I want to continue, I guess. And it's, for graduate school, it's relatively affordable. I think for each of my semesters so far, I took 2 classes last semester and 2 this semester. It's been around $2,400 per semester. And then 5 classes in total is what gets you the certificate. And then all the courses that I've been taking for the certificate, if I decide to continue and pursue masters, you know, they apply to the masters.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
yeah, so one thing I've noticed about graduate courses is that, you know, they're very heavily team-based. I know a couple of the MIS undergrad courses here, they're also project and team-based. The amount of work required in graduate courses is greater per credit hour. I would say the 2 courses that I'm taking each semester for 6 hours, I probably have the same amount of work as I would have had in 4 classes in undergrad.
Wow.
It's a lot, but pretty much everything is graded on completion, and, you know, it's done in a group setting. So you have to, you know, again, time management and scheduling is important. It's making sure that you, you know, have weekly meetings with your group mates, and, you know, these people all have, you know, working lives and stuff, and they're kind of going through the same stuff. But yeah, as far as the actual program is concerned, it's biomedical informatics. I picked it because it's a pretty solid intersection between healthcare and, you know, IT and what I did in undergrad. So a lot of the courses that I've taken, they've had some direct link, or like I see parallels between what I learn in the class and what I do in my job. If you're not necessarily inclined to healthcare, I think that MBA, you know, obviously is another very compelling fields to, you know, go into. I think that had I wanted to do something more generalized, I would have done an MBA instead.
Got you.
Okay.
Okay. And what is your end goal?
So my goal was to get a job as an application analyst like this. Right now I'm an associate, meaning that I'm new, I'm incoming. And then after 2 years, you just become application systems analyst. And then 2 years later, you become senior. And then there's like a progression. Then you can become a principal analyst, a manager, you know, director, and you can kind of, you know, progress your career that way.
Yeah.
My ultimate, I guess, career goals, it would be nice to be like the CIO of like a hospital.
Okay.
You know, chief information officer. It's kind of neat to see the way that a lot of companies and businesses are having what are called digital transformations. Like they're similar to what I'm doing in the XNAP projects. They're taking the information that they already have, and they're like, okay, we can utilize this more effectively. Like we can, you know, what are some new things we can do to, you know, to make this benefit our company.
Yeah.
So to kind of, you know, be able to steer an organization and kind of help it, you know, be its most effective self, I think that would be really neat.
Awesome. Awesome. And from just our conversations we've had in the past, and now you are people-centered. What else do you think would prepare you to become the CIO?
You know, you mentioned relationships with people is obviously very important. I think that, you know, empathy and understanding is also very important. You have to be keen to how other people are feeling and understanding. You know, in person, you have, you know, nonverbal cues. It can be harder to understand how someone is feeling virtually over the computer. But, you know, taking time to realize that, you know, the people you're working with, they also are people, you know, they have goals. So, you know, being understanding. I think that, you know, again, you have to be kind of like motivated. You have to be willing to ask questions, and you want to kind of be, pushing forward, I guess, looking for new things, new ways to, benefit the company. whatever.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Well said, well said. Okay. Any questions from the audience? What's up, Eric?
So I know on my side of MD Anderson, they do a True Colors class type of thing. Do y'all also do that over there?
So I think I've heard of that, but I have not taken the True Colors assessment.
Okay.
Is that where, can you explain a bit more?
So there's like 4 different colors. It's orange, green, blue, and gold. So basically, people who are more towards blue, they're more feelings work. They're guided by their feelings. People who are green, they go more by logic, understanding, like they want to know what makes itself churn.
Mhm.
Orange is a little less feelings, but still has it in there. Gold is kind of the drive, like the motivation type of thing.
Okay, yeah. Based on those descriptions, if I had to pick one, I would probably say I'm mostly logic or like based, I guess, or reasoning.
Mhm.
A lot of times when I have, conflict or I have problems, it can be, you definitely want to kind of keep yourself in check. When something new is, presented to you, your first impression can be, very strong,
Mhm.
but, you need to be able to take a step back and kind of, evaluate and understand like, okay, what are the, impacts this could have? How do other people feel about this?
Yeah.
You just have to, I think that it's important to be patient and, what's the word? You want to be, I guess you could say like thorough in your understanding.
Mhm. Absolutely.
I don't want to like rush to conclusions. I think it's better to be patient or maybe take a bit longer, but know that you made the right decision than it is to, just rush to judgment,
Giving me a little gold,
Right.
Blue or gold, yeah.
Isn't that green?
Well, the green was the main one, but then he also talked about like feelings and keeping them in check and everything like that.
So
Combination.
yeah, so when they do the test, like I did the test and they'll give you a level of all 4.
Mhm.
Like I was extremely high on green, extremely high on gold,
Mhm.
but low, like I got one of the lowest numbers.
Yeah.
And they explain to you like, okay, people who are incredibly green, like when you hear somebody talking about emotions, feelings, they're like, take a step back before you answer
Mhm.
and put yourself in their shoes and think about what's going to come out before you actually say it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
I took it a few years ago in grad school, and I was a blue and orange, so high energy and empathetic.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that makes sense for education, Yeah. So awesome.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely, Ryan.
Yeah, so going back to what you say, what you learn in class, being applicable to your job and workplace, how technical can it get? Do you really like learn all of the SQL or the database administration part?
That's a very good question. Again, one reason I picked MIS instead of like computer science is because I'm not too keen to like programming. Some of the classes that I took in MIS that applied to what I do now, one of them is project management, learning about, the different steps of the software development lifecycle, the different methodologies. A lot of it is just kind of learning the material, I guess. And when I was taking the class, it was kind of boring. I didn't really want to learn it, but I was like, okay, if this is, a field that I'm considering going into, this is something that I should look into.
Absolutely.
And I should try to understand. And once I kind of started my internship and I got to experience, I guess, or see these principles in action, I was like, okay, this not only does this make sense, but because I've been exposed to this prior, I don't have to think about, like, why are they doing this step or that step? I'm just like, okay, this is what they're doing. One particular example, so I worked with the IT project management team, and they have what's called human capital management software. It's like the HR software that a company uses. You log in to check your benefits or your salary, your pay, whatever. MD Anderson was moving from one system to another system.
Yeah.
and we were responsible for, you know, implementing this new system. So I got to sit in on some of these meetings where, you know, they kind of, first they were planning, and then they were designing, and then they were implementing, and then they were, you know, analyzing the outcomes of this new software. So that to me was pretty neat, because even though I didn't have the technical, I guess, knowledge or of like, you know, how to, we work with Oracle now. I didn't have any knowledge of like Oracle. I didn't need that knowledge because other people on the team who had the technical knowledge were responsible for those parts.
Got it. Yeah.
And so that's, again, like if they were to put me on a project saying like, okay, there was another one we did with Outlook. When people are scheduled for interviews, the, you know, HR would be the one kind of facilitating like, okay, this is when you're available. And it would be back and forth between the person
Yeah.
interviewing and whatever. So they had a new thing in Oracle that I helped implement where the interviewee can look into the Outlook calendar of the interviewer, and any free time they can just like say, I want to interview at this time. So now HR is no longer required to kind of facilitate, and you know, it's a much more direct and like easy solution. So
Wow.
like the team that I worked with, I didn't have any functional knowledge of what is called Azure or you know, Active Directory, but you know, I knew with the project management principles, like, okay, we need to see like who are the stakeholders, you know, these are the kind of questions we need to ask. And then once we figured that out, we went to the development people and said, okay, can you build like, you know, this solution? So yeah. One other class that I took that was helpful was MIS 4312, and it's called Application Analysis, Design and Implementation, which is pretty much exactly what this job is now.
Awesome. Awesome. Question. You mentioned project management a few times. Will you need a project management certification to advance in your position if you do choose to stay, or just in the realm of your work that you do?
So I think that or having a project management certification is certainly helpful. So in my internship, it was for IT project management.
Okay.
The role that I'm in now is not so much project management based, but I think that if project management is something you want to pursue, that you know, there are definitely certifications out there that are beneficial. One of them is called PMP, which people might have heard of. It's put out by Project Management Institute. In order to receive the certification, you have to take a certain number of training hours, and then you have to have work experience as well. There is a junior level certification called CAP-M, which is just the exam part, I think, or the like testing part. There is no work requirements. Other certifications that I'm not as familiar with, but I have heard of, one of them is called Green Belts. There's one of them called Six Sigma. They're all just different project management like frameworks, I guess.
Awesome. And if you all are interested in learning more about project management, we have a CLC on it in a few weeks. I would say the 22nd. The dates are still a little bit blurry to me, but we also have a project management CLC where we have someone coming in to talk about their journey from healthcare to higher ed as an MBA student while they're pursuing their end goal is project management right now. So check that out as well to learn more information about it. But it was a lot of overlaps in what you were sharing, so I just asked. Would you get any of those? I mean, the CAP-M?
Yeah, one of the graduate courses that I'm taking now is partially like they prepare you to take this exam.
Awesome.
So I'm planning on taking one of probably the CAP-M.
Okay.
Probably in like May or so.
Okay.
Admittedly, I haven't studied for it or done any preparation at all. You know, I've just kind of been like, you know, 1 week at a time, one day at a time. There's a lot going on, but yeah, I think that, you know, pursuing, you know, these certifications as well as, you know, education, it can be very beneficial. I know that, you know, when I finished my bachelor's, I was like, I never considered going to school beyond bachelor's. I'm like, I don't want to do that. But
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, now that, the curriculum is getting more specified to my areas of interests, this is something that it's easier for me to do.
Yeah.
Got it.
I'm more interested, more engaged with the classes I'm taking.
Because it's like applying to your actual goals.
Exactly.
I get it.
Yeah,
Okay.
like, as an MIS undergrad, you have to take, supply chain and accounting and
Mhm.
all these things. But then, then you start taking the MIS classes that applied. And then now I'm taking, application development specifically for healthcare, or
Mhm.
another class is called workflow analysis, in the context of healthcare. right?
Okay,
So,
that's true.
mhm.
So you're pursuing a grad certificate. Was the GRE or GMAT required?
Neither.
Okay, perfect.
Um,
perfect.
The certificate program, in order to get in, I think they just required like a copy of your undergraduate transcript and then like 1 or 2 letters of recommendation.
Okay,
If I want to continue and pursue master's degree, then it requires, I think it does require one of those exams. It also requires like a goal statement,
okay.
like faculty sponsorship, because you have to have like a research projects and that sort of stuff.
Awesome, awesome, thank you. In your experience, what are some challenges you have witnessed yourself or experienced in your career field, internship included? And how did you overcome them?
So one of the biggest career challenges that I faced so far, I think, was, finishing college. I graduated from high school in 2015, and then I went to Texas A&M. I was planning on pursuing pre-med. That was pretty much my whole goal from like, high school. I was like, I'm just going to be a doctor.
Mhm.
And then when I failed out, I was like, okay, what do I do now? Like, I have no fallback. I have no idea what I want to do. I went to HCC for a while and failed out of HCC. Like, it was not a good time. But, then I spent more time thinking about like, okay, what are some things that I could pursue? Like, the major end goal was graduate from college. And I'm like, okay, what are the smaller components of doing that? And I'm like, okay, first I need to get back into HCC. And then it's like, okay, now that I'm in good academic standing, now I have to get into a 4-year institution.
Yeah.
And, kind of, for me, breaking up what was this, huge task into like much smaller kind of, things, it helped a lot with planning as well. Like, once I started going to school here, I was like, okay, well, let me see if I can find a job on campus. So then I did that. And then from there, like, once I started, like graduation was coming up, I was like, okay, let me start looking for internships.
Yeah.
I would say after getting the internship, I was fortunate. I did apply to a lot, but one of the first interviews that I had was for the position that I ended up ultimately getting. Applying to full-time jobs was very difficult. I applied to, a lot of jobs at MD Anderson, just because I already was there, but also other hospitals. And I applied to probably like 15 jobs at MD Anderson. I had interviews for maybe 10 of them. I had like final round interviews for 5 of the positions, meaning like it was down to me and like 1 or 2 other candidates. And, to keep getting that far in the process and then not getting the job, it was discouraging. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? Like I'm making it this far, but I was like, okay, it's all a matter of perspective. Like, I can take the experience that, I'm getting from these interviews. I'm learning the kind of questions that they're asking for, and I'm getting to know, what they're looking for. I started kind of seeing how different teams had different approaches and like different questions. So by the time that I interviewed for the job that I have now, I was talking with the hiring manager today, and he was like, yeah, we could tell like after the first interview that like, you would just seem so prepared and like confident, I guess. And I was like, to me, it didn't feel that way, but I guess just because I had been, sitting in that seat so many times before, like, the practice really does, it benefits you. So,
And being rejected so many times.
And get, you kind of be like, oh, well, what worse can happen?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that was another thing is that I felt like the more interviews that I went to, the more comfortable I was, being myself. And at first, I was thinking like, what is it that they want to hear? Which, you shouldn't do that. You should be honest, obviously. But, it's like, talk about a time that you had, an issue with a coworker. And of course you want to be like, oh, well, we just talked it out and everything was great. But,
I like the
once,
laugh.
this most recent interview that I had, they were like, talk about a time that you were, maybe talking to a supervisor or a manager, or you approached them with a suggestion or idea and they rejected it. They said no. Like, how did that go? How did that make you feel? How did you, encounter that? And I was like, well, I remember it in the computer lab one time, I suggested to my manager that we like try doing something this new way. And she said no. And at first, I was hurt, I'm a person, like I thought that my idea was good, but
Yeah.
I explained to them that I was able to kind of see it from my manager's perspective, like, okay, why is it that she's saying no? And it's like, okay, she has some reasons, let's think about them. And, I can use this as like a growing experience. So, yeah. And then another question they asked in my interview was, we see there's a big gap on your resume from, it was 2013 to 2017. 2017 being when I started, I think my job here. In 2013, I did like a summer research experience in high school at MD Anderson. But, I was open with them. I told them like, I went to A&M, I failed out. I went to HCC, I failed out of there. But then, just because it wasn't going well for me then, like, I was able to kind of, turn it around and, pursue school and stuff. And, being honest, it's important. I think it shows,
Like the vulnerability.
Yeah.
The realness.
right, or
Yeah.
maybe not even vulnerability, but it shows that you're willing to accept and address, your past, and you're not trying to hide that you're open, I guess. Yeah, so
Absolutely.
being vulnerable is just
Absolutely. Taking accountability.
But I also think that
Yeah.
if you're more trustworthy, because if you do make a mistake, you'll say you made a mistake.
right. And
Yeah.
it shows that you're taking ownership of your past, and that, it shows resiliency too, to be
Right.
able to, so.
Push through.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I guess because they be hearing all these generic responses.
Yeah.
He sticks out.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's different.
Yeah, something else to think about for interviews that helped me a lot is, know the position that you're applying for, so that in the interview at the end, you typically have an opportunity to ask questions
Yeah.
to the people who are hiring you. And the questions that you ask, that's a really good time to make yourself stand out from other candidates, I think.
Absolutely.
Like you want to ask questions that show not only are you interested in, that you're like serious about the position, like, but, show that you have interest in the company, I guess. Like one of the questions I asked one of the interviewers was, what has been your greatest moment so far working at this organization? It's that kind of question is kind of personal, so they get to talk about themselves, but then it also shows you like, what they think of the company. And then it shows that you have some interest in it as well. You can also ask questions about, difficulties, like what do you think the person selected for this role will have difficulties with? What are some of the biggest challenges the person selected for this role might face? So that way you show that you're thinking about like, what could I cross my path? Like, you're being proactive like this.
Yes, absolutely. Well put. Well said, Mark. Love it.
Got a question.
Yeah.
So when you were doing that application process looking for the internship, did you really know what you were looking for?
So there were 5 internships. One was for IT training and IT project management, which is the one I ended up getting. One of them was for what is called ambulatory access and revenue cycle, which is more like financial side IT. One of them One of them was for, what is it called? EHR, like interoperability, or what is it? Oh, development and integration. That was more like development side.
Okay.
And then one of them was for EHR like analysis and leadership, which that internship is the one that I really wanted, because that one, like EHR analysis, which is like what I do now, it was like very, very focused and similar to, to what I wanted to do. But I ended up receiving an offer for the project management position first. And I was like, okay, they offer this to me, I'm going to take it. I'm not going to, risk not getting this other position and then, not having anything. So yeah, going into it, I had some kind of idea of like, I want to do, healthcare IT. Really, the only things that I knew was that I didn't really want to do development work so much. But
I guess
yeah,
when you read that responsibility or the roles or the specifics of it, then you can kind of get an idea. If it's
yeah,
more
exactly.
Developing or it's more like project management.
Right,
Just
like-
titles can be different, but the roles can be kind of similar.
Yeah, I think so. And, admittedly, I would have taken any internship that was available to me just for the sake of, getting your foot in the door, and that's how it is. But, I think maybe that was beneficial to me, that I was willing to, pursue, many different areas I was interested. I didn't restrict myself to maybe one super focused area.
Awesome. Great question, Ryan. Alina, we have a question in the chat. Do you mind reading that one for us, please?
We have a question regarding resume. So did you also use VMOL to structure your resume?
Did I use what?
VMOC.
VMOC,
Yes.
data hired.
Use VMOC. And I actually think that I kept it pretty similar after, because I think one of the classes requires you to use VMOC and set up your resume a certain way. I think it generally is formatted the same way, but I think I made like some minor changes just to like margins and stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, I personally liked the format because I was able to showcase, my experience here at UH Downtown, and then my previous kind of like research experience at MD Anderson. And then I also like how there's an area for like, pertinent classwork, I guess, showing like, these are the classes that I've taken, and this is, they could probably be helpful for,
We have a few more questions before we wrap up the session. Again, if y'all have more questions, please feel free to ask away. We will get to them, but I'm going to keep rolling through the ones I have on this list. Can you share some organizations to learn more about in the MIS field?
So specifically at UH Downtown, there's an organization called AITP, which is Association of IT Professionals. I was involved in that organization. It was a good like networking opportunity for, more than just healthcare, but pretty much any business IT kind of job. They have like, different people come in and talks with different speakers, that sort of thing. As far as professional organizations go, there's one called CompTIA, CompTIA, and they do a lot of accreditation for, or like certification for a lot of IT areas. Like they have one for security, network. They have a general one called A+. So CompTIA is a good one to look into. There's also Project Management Institute is the one that puts out PMP. I'm pretty sure they have, organization like events and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a good networking opportunity. And then there's one more. Its name escapes me, but yeah, there are quite a few. Oh, they're healthcare related, healthcare IT. One is HIMSS, Healthcare Information Management System Society, I think.
Okay.
And they have like student registration and stuff, but yeah, those are some good organizations to look into.
Thank you. And we will go through and share all these acronyms with you.
Yeah.
because it's a lot, but thank you for those plugs to the student organization. I didn't know that there was a student organization titled that here.
Yeah,
That's pretty dope. And the last one you mentioned, the MIS pro, or specifically for healthcare.
yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah. There's one other organization at UH downtown. It might be of interest. I think it's called Association of Computing Machinery, ACM. I was not involved, but I know that also, it's another like healthcare, or sorry, another business IT organization.
Got you. Awesome. All right, Mark, my last question for you. What are you looking forward to most about your future? I like the laugh. That's a good sign.
Yeah, I think it's a good sign.
Okay.
Admittedly, I haven't thought of much about my future. I've been, in the past couple of weeks, months, it's been busy, getting to this point. But, I'm certainly looking forward to, kind of starting my career. I'm looking forward to having money and
No, be real. That is real. That is real.
And then kind of, starting my future and stuff. And, I have my girlfriend and stuff, making things right with her. And,
Okay.
yeah, moving on.
Okay. Awesome. Well, here's to your beautiful future. And I know that you are well on your way with anything that you do in MIS and healthcare or outside of it. It has been a pleasure to see you thrive. And I hope that you continue to see the power of you just staying committed to the journey, because that is truly, truly beautiful. Is there any other questions before we wrap up the session tonight? Online, in person?
How rigorous was the application process? I know they go through all
For
these
MD
interviews.
Anderson?
Yeah,
Um,
and all these questionnaires.
So for the internships, it wasn't so bad because they understand that people are college age, they don't have a lot of experience. One other thing that I think kind of benefited me, I guess full disclosure, my mom works at MD Anderson as a administrative assistant, as like a secretary. So I had some previous exposure to MD Anderson through her. And when I was in high school, I got to observe with her doctors.
Okay.
And I was it was like a research experience and it was paid. And this was in high school. So when I applied to these internships, they asked if I had previously been, employed there, and I had been. And I think that could have potentially helped me. Do I think it's the only reason I got the internship? No, but I think that it was helpful.
Absolutely.
So I think that, you just need to find ways to kind of, leverage any existing, I guess, benefits you have. And then also, yeah, just, any opportunities you have. And then, be ready to, I wouldn't even say face rejection, but just be ready to put applications out there and not hear anything back. Even when I was applying to full-time jobs, I would just, fire off so many, and then it's like, okay, if I heard back from one, then, that's better than zero. So
Absolutely. Awesome. Okay. Any other questions? Awesome. Okay. Well, Mark, thank you again for taking this time to join your ATA family to talk about your career, the start of it, your internship, and your journey to where you are now through UHD. We are excited to have you. Hope you come back soon. And this time, Christy will be there. But do not be a stranger. This is your home. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Many new faces in here today, which is always a good thing. The role of these conversations is to give you a firsthand experience of what the journey will look like into a career field from somebody who is here.
I can repeat the acronyms.
Yes.
First, the UHD ones are Association of Information Technology Professionals, and the Association for Computing Machinery. Those are two. And then the Project Management Institute is a professional organization for, project management professionals. And then the healthcare IT one is Healthcare Information Management Systems Society, HIMSS.
And CompTIA was the last.
Yeah, CompTIA is another one. They're the ones who I think are associated or affiliated with AITP. I'm not sure if it stands for anything, but yeah, it's COMPTIA.
And our peer mentor, Alina, she is dropping those acronyms in the chat for you. Please feel free to just, copy and paste into the Google and they'll pull up for you. If that is all we have, again, thank y'all for joining us this evening at 6:45. You will be receiving the CLC reflection survey. Please share with us what you gained from this event, new information, what you would like to see, how we can, improve on our programming, because this is solely for y'all to have these conversations with people who are in the fields that you're interested in going into. And we just thank you for your time again. Mark, as always, it's been a pleasure. Look forward to seeing the wonderful things that you're doing in your career and in your journey. And we hope to see y'all soon. We have project management CLC coming up. I believe it's March 22nd. And then we have a higher education one and a history one, two separate ones towards the end of March. If you are interested in learning about those career paths, please rejoin us again. All of them will be on the TVs around campus. So if you see it and you like it, just scan the QR code and we'll see you soon. Other than that, y'all, please vote today. Take care, be safe, be well. Bye.